welcome back to our second of our two-part episode this evening on the HR Insider. We will be continuing with our panelists on cybersecurity. So we'll go ahead and let them introduce themselves, a name and a company, please.
I'm Bob Rockers, the CTO of Automation Integrated.
And I'm Charles Gardner, the CTO of Easy Time Clock.
And I'm Andrew Noland with Alias Forensics.
So the previous episode, we talked a little bit, kind of the basic knowledge of cybersecurity, what it is, some certain terms to familiarize ourselves with phishing and spam. So specifically what we want to talk about tonight is how it affects small businesses and how small businesses can protect themselves.
So when you're thinking of your answers tonight, think of Alicia last year when she took over the company and had no idea what she was doing, and it would have helped her know that that's something she could have looked for. Those are the kind of answers we're looking for. So like right off the bat, let's start with what are some of the most common threats that you guys have seen either on an employer or an employee level, company level, when it comes to cybersecurity that you're having to deal with right now?
Well, I mean, kind of the most obvious ones you see are the ransomware attacks. Everybody has seen the WannaCry. Everybody's seen all the different crypto locker viruses that are out there. And those are especially, I guess, devastating in a sense because it can get very expensive very quickly depending on how much the attacker knows about, the company that they were able to attack with that.
Yeah, you could lose access to all your information, all your customer records, all orders.
What I like most about the ransomware stuff, though, is honestly, if you're doing good technology hygiene, right, it shouldn't be a problem. Like, if you're doing backups, worst case scenario is you go to a backup. What it really does is it exposes that companies aren't doing the basics of what they need to be doing right. They're not backing up their software. They're not setting good security policies, good password policies. They're not closing out users after they leave the company or recovering their hardware and that kind of thing. So just good technology hygiene that they should be doing. And I tell people all the time that unfortunately we don't realize that in reality almost all companies, other than if you're a base service company, all companies are data companies now. All of them are. If you're an engineering firm, a lot of engineers think that they make plans and they draw on little boards and do things like that. But in reality, they're using AutoCAD and ArcGIS and these tools to make really complex designs, and that's data. They're just data.
It's all data files on a computer.
Exactly. They're data specialists. They handle a particular kind of data a particular kind of data that has to be handled in a very certain way, but they're data specialists. That's true for architecture firms. That's true for a lot of different things. I think Walmart would tell you their single biggest asset's probably their inventory management. And that's just a byproduct of the fact that if you're going to provide some kind of technological edge, then you're going to be a company that has to focus on that. And if you're not providing a technological edge, then you're likely not going to be around for a long time. So,
Absolutely.
Wow. A very, very basic thing that we hear a lot about with cybersecurity, very basic, is our passwords.
Yeah.
And we hear a lot of sites now or emails that they require, it needs to be 10 letters, a number and another exclamation mark or another
Doohickey thing, whatever that's called.
Special character.
Character. So
doohickey.
how important is that? What advice can you give for all of us, whether it's our personal information, our personal passwords, to make those strong? Should we be changing them all the time? Do we have to have multiple passwords for everything? I mean, I can't remember my kid's birthday half the time. I can't remember 5 passwords. So if you could talk to us about, is that really necessary, and how to make the best password, how to protect ourselves?
Having different levels of passwords is always like kind of a good first step to where it's like, your banking password is gonna at least be different than your Facebook password or
Okay.
your random email password. Because at least then if they hack into one, then they get access to like low-level stuff, but your banking's still safe.
Okay.
Having it different for everything is definitely a plus, because then if they hack into something, they only get that one thing. And then having it complex is important. Having it longer is better than complex. At least what we're seeing lately, because a lot of people, when they're stuck with having a 8-character long password, they'll do password and then the number 1. Okay, well,
And that's stupid.
that's a very
right?
easy,
That's not
easily
what you do.
guessed password.
Absolutely.
Easy. That's like one of the first things you would want to try if you're trying to hack it.
So note to
So-
self, I'm gonna try password 1 on everybody's computer that I know and see if I get in
Probably
and
get
see
a
their
good
data.
You'll probably get half of them.
Yeah.
Password 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
The NIST just came out with their updated password recommendations, about 3-4 months ago.
Mhm.
And one of the big changes, and this is something that we were pushing as well, is not to actually require your employees to change their passwords every 3 months or every 6
Yeah.
months. And the reason why is because what they've discovered is that if you force your employees to change their passwords regularly, they make their passwords simpler, and then they just start incrementing them anyway.
Like October 1 to
Yeah.
October 2.
Yeah.
October 3.
Exactly, because it becomes too difficult to remember. So, especially when we're dealing with the IT staff at locations, what we recommend is that you find a way to have a slightly different password on each site or each place you go to, whether that is that you use some combination of the URL as part of the password, or whether or not you use your part of your unique identifier as a password or whatever in there. Then something that you're comfortable with as far as a password, and then something that is to extend the length of that password that is not sequential or obvious, but that is easy to remember. So it's a lot better to have, for example, password 1, and then your 11 Misty Court, as which was your first address or whatever, and then some variation of on there, and you end up with this 15 or 20 long password. But it's easy to remember than it is to have an 8-character password with a bunch of different things in there that you can't remember and is hard to kind of figure out.
So I'm sorry, the long one that you said with the Misty Court is better to
Is
have
better.
than an 8 one that's just a bunch of random
A bunch of
numbers
random
that you can't
passwords,
remember.
Yeah.
especially
Harder
with
for a computer to guess.
Yeah, because what we're
Okay.
finding is that the attack vectors on websites are actually fairly slow. The number of passwords you can actually feed into a website is often very, very limited, 3 or 4 a second at maximum speeds. So what's usually happening is these big hacks have happened lately, the Target hacks and the Equifax hacks. They're actually breaking into systems, downloading the password database, and then using massive crack arrays to brute force the passwords. So an 8-character password, it doesn't matter how complex it is, can be broken in a matter of seconds.
So you said that they downloaded it and then they got their passwords. This may be, again, I may be having a stupid question here, but does encryption not stop that?
Encryption helps, but encryption is always a trade-off between complexity and processing time. So an 8-character password is 8 characters, and ultimately you just have to try every combination of every letter in 8 characters.
And
That's
not
actually
very
fairly
many.
small.
So
That's only like
encryption-
120 to the 8th power, if you think of the possible number of characters being about 120, and then there's 8 of them, that's to the 8th, or is it the other way around? It's 8 to the 120th power? Do I have it backwards? Any direction.
Yeah, I
Oh,
think
wait,
it's
wait,
8 to
we don't know
120,
math here, we just know
But-
computers, right?
So-
is a small amount when you talk a computer that can run millions per second.
But when you actually start adding length to that, and this is why humans are notoriously bad at large numbers, but if you do 12, or we'll say
Takes them
16,
longer.
an 8-character password and a 16-character password, 16 isn't twice as complex. A 16-character password is
Like 120,
No,
is a lot
it's-
more.
it's-
How many
Exponentially
It's
more
X-
complex.
each
Yes.
addition,
Because
each number you
120
add
times
exponentially
the
increases
number
the
before.
complexity. So you go from being able to break it in seconds to taking billions of years to break a password.
So if we have a longer password with capitals
Mhm.
and different characters and numbers,
But it's easy for you
Easy
to
to
remember, is better.
Is better.
Yeah.
It is better.
It's kind of, one of the things that we've really been helping our clients with is it's the age of the passphrase. So.
Passphrase, yeah, that's a really good way. We just need to get in the habit of saying that is really
Yeah.
what we need to do.
Passphrase.
So not
Yeah,
a password,
yeah.
but passphrases.
It's a lot easier to crack one word than it is a sentence. And
Just
we even
staple words
suggest,
together and
yeah,
helps
we
out
even
a lot.
suggest using sentences that don't make sense, that only you would remember.
Oh, yeah.
Because it
Yeah.
just helps increase the complexity.
So what we should take away from this segment's conversation sounds like, make your backups. That's number one on how to
That's a
make
good
sure a
one.
business can be taken care
You
of.
called it something hygiene.
Yes.
Technology
Basic.
hygiene,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
So we want backups, probably based on your industry, at minimum weekly, depending on how often your data
Depending on how much it
changes.
And how much you can stand to lose before it hurts.
Right.
Before- okay, so
If
Think
a
about-
day
think
won't hurt
about-
that bad, then maybe a week. But if a day will hurt, then yeah.
Think
And
about
then-
your cash flow.
Okay.
If you're going to not be able to stay in business because you lose a day's worth of data, then you better be backing up every hour. If you can run a month without the data, or you can lose a month's worth of data and still be okay, then you probably can get away with backups at I wouldn't go a month, but for longer intervals.
So backups, passwords that are passphrases
Yeah.
that are longer versus common or a single word or something easy to
Mhm.
guess. And kind of in our previous conversation, we had talked about just recognizing emails that you shouldn't be clicking and that you shouldn't, if it doesn't look right, don't open it, don't click it. Those are kind of three of the biggest ways that any business and any person can protect themselves. Am I summing you guys up pretty well on that?
And one thing I wanted to add to that about the hygiene, if you will, is patching. Run your updates
Yeah.
whenever you
Yeah, the
get.
ransomware attack.
Yeah,
exactly.
Lack of a patch.
Yeah, that was,
Yeah.
that should have said that. You're right.
Whenever,
So many new
yeah,
words.
Well, and-
anytime it asks you to update, I know you're in the middle of writing that Word document or working on that Excel spreadsheet, but
Guilty.
go ahead and,
Right, click update.
yeah,
Yeah, it's
update
useful
it,
to
reset
go
it,
once
it'll be
every
okay.
week or so.
Well, thank you guys for teaching us about technological hygiene, I guess, is what we'll
Yeah.
call tonight. And we appreciate your time this evening. And thank you guys for watching our video tonight. And make sure you like us on Facebook and follow us on YouTube. Thank you for watching our show today. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for further shows that we do, and leave us a comment if you have any questions.
Also, we would love your ideas for more topics, so if you have ideas, please leave them in the comments below. Thanks again.
Thanks!